The Law of Assumption, bridging spiritual wisdom, psychology, and science. The Law of Assumption is a spiritual principle that whatever we assume to be true in our inner world will eventually manifest in our outer world. In simple terms, our persistent beliefs and feelings shape our reality. This concept was popularized by Neville Goddard, a 20th century mystic who taught that an assumption, though false, if persisted in, will harden into fact. According to Goddard, the key to manifesting desires is to assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, living in the end result of your desire as if it is already accomplished. By consistently believing and feeling that your goal is already achieved, you impress this reality upon your subconscious mind and, as Goddard taught, send a powerful message to the universe, which in turn brings the assumed state into being. In essence, the Law of Assumption goes beyond mere positive thinking. It calls for an inner conviction so strong that one embodies the desired reality in thought and emotion. Over time, these dominant assumptions crystallize into the facts and circumstances of one's life. To illustrate, if someone habitually assumes they are confident and successful, they will tend to act, communicate, and make decisions in alignment with that belief, ultimately drawing in opportunities and outcomes that reflect confidence and success. Conversely, if one assumes lack or unworthiness, life seems to mirror those expectations with obstacles and disappointments. This self-reinforcing cycle is central to the Law of Assumption. It suggests that inner transformation precedes external transformation. By changing our deepest assumptions about ourselves and life, we change the vibrations or mindset we emit, which then attracts corresponding conditions. Many find this empowering and inspirational, as it implies we are co-creators of our reality through the quality of our consciousness. Spiritual interpretations across traditions. Christianity, faith, and assuming the answer. In the Christian tradition, there are striking parallels to the Law of Assumption. Jesus' teachings on faith often imply believing something is true before it is visible. For example, Jesus said, "Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours." Rather than begging or doubting, this verse encourages an attitude of embodiment, essentially, praying with the inner certainty that the prayer is already answered. Many see this as the Law of Assumption before it ever had a name, as one author puts it. Likewise, the Bible defines faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, Hebrews 11 verse 1. This substance can be understood as a present assurance, a conviction that already takes custody here and now of what we hope for. In other words, genuine faith means internally living in the feeling of the desired outcome, what God has promised, before any tangible proof, which is exactly the premise of the Law of Assumption. Christian mystics and the Word of Faith movement also echo this idea, that one should speak and act in line with the desired blessing, trusting God's provision as if it's already done. However, Christian interpreters add that such assuming must be aligned with God's will and goodness. When approached humbly, prayer coupled with belief becomes a powerful creative force. Faith is the title deed to unseen realities. This perspective shows how the Law of Assumption resonates with age-old biblical principles of faith, while also reminding practitioners to seek divine guidance and virtue in what they choose to manifest. Eastern philosophies, mind as the architect of reality. Eastern spiritual traditions have long taught that mind and intention shape our existence. Over 2,500 years ago, the Buddha declared in the Dhammapada, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts we make the world." This profound statement reflects the Law of Assumption's core notion. Our inner thought life literally constructs the reality we experience. If one's mind harbors impurity or negativity, Suffering follows as the wheel follows the ox that draws the cart, but a pure mind yields happiness as your shadow, unshakable. Buddhist philosophy emphasizes that the outer world is a reflection of inner consciousness, a concept very much in line with assuming the feeling of a desired state. In Hindu philosophy, we find a similar principle in the Upanishads. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad teaches that a person consists of desires, and as is his desire, so is his will. As is his will, so is his deed, and whatever deed he does, that he will reap. This ancient verse maps out a chain from inner desire, intention, to willed action to manifested reality, essentially stating that our deep driving desire/assumption sets destiny into motion. A more poetic translation often quoted is, "You are what your deep, driving desire is. As your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny." In Hindu thought, especially in yoga and Vedanta, the material world is sometimes described as Maya, illusion, and consciousness, Atman/Brahman, is the fundamental reality. Thus, by changing one's consciousness or assumption, one literally changes the world of appearances one experiences. These Eastern perspectives add a philosophical depth to the law of assumption. They suggest it works not by a fanciful quirk, but because at a fundamental level consciousness is the ground of being. In simple practice, Eastern teachings encourage mindfulness and intentionality, to watch one's thoughts and cultivate the reality one wishes to see. As the Buddha said, "What we intentionally think, we become." This is the law of assumption expressed through the lens of karma and mental discipline. New Age and metaphysical perspectives. In modern New Age spirituality and New Thought philosophy, the law of assumption finds a natural home. Neville Goddard himself drew upon esoteric interpretations of the Bible and was influenced by the New Thought movement. His teacher Abdullah was also teacher to Joseph Murphy of the power of your subconscious mind. New Age thinkers emphasize that consciousness creates reality, often linking ideas like the law of attraction, popularized by The Secret, with both ancient wisdom and emerging science. A core Hermetic teaching from the Kybalion states, the all is mind, the universe is mental. In other words, existence is akin to a grand thought within a universal mind. If the universe is mental, held in the mind of the all, then our individual minds, as sparks of that divine mind, possess creative power. This Hermetic principle of mentalism underpins much of New Age metaphysics. Reality is malleable and responsive to consciousness. Therefore, New Age practitioners advocate techniques like creative visualization, affirmations, and feeling-based intentions to deliberately craft one's life. The law of assumption is essentially a more specific articulation of this process. Rather than merely wishing or attracting, one assumes the wish is fulfilled and operates from that knowing. Many contemporary spiritual teachers echo Neville's advice to act as if and maintain an inner vibration of already having one's desire. Dr. Wayne Dyer, inspired by Neville, summarized it as, "Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled." This approach aligns with the vibrational view in New Age thought, that like attracts like, and by feeling the joy or gratitude of having one's goal now, one's energy matches that reality and draws it in. It's an inspirational mindset that blends faith with personal empowerment, often reinforced with success stories and anecdotal examples in spiritual circles. Critics sometimes warn that this can lead to blaming individuals for misfortunes by implying they assumed wrong, but proponents stress it's not about blame. It's about consciously stepping into one's creative authority. New Age metaphysics sees the law of assumption as a tool to awaken our inherent divinity. We are co-creators with the universe, and by mastering our assumptions, our mental and emotional patterns, We align with the flow of abundance and well-being that the universe offers. In summary, New Age spirituality embraces the law of assumption as both a practical manifesting method and a reflection of the deeper truth that mind and matter are intimately connected. Psychological insights, mindset, and belief in action. From a psychological standpoint, the law of assumption finds support in well-known phenomena that show how beliefs influence outcomes. Modern psychology has demonstrated that our mindset, our core assumptions about ourselves and life, can become self-fulfilling prophecies. A self-fulfilling prophecy is a belief or expectation that, merely by being held, influences behaviors in a way that brings about its own fulfillment. In other words, a person's expectations about a situation lead to actions that make those expectations happen. For example, if a student assumes I'm bad at math, they may unconsciously put in less effort or feel more anxious, leading to poor performance, thus confirming the assumption. Conversely, a student who confidently assumes I am capable of mastering this material is likely to approach the work with more determination and openness, often achieving better results. Psychologists have long noted this cause and effect loop between belief and behavior. Our inner narrative guides our actions and even nonverbal cues, which in turn influence how others respond and what opportunities we notice or capitalize on. The law of assumption harnesses this loop by encouraging people to deliberately adopt positive, success-oriented beliefs so that their natural behaviors and micro-decisions align with those beliefs, creating favorable outcomes. One specific area of psychology illustrating this is mindset theory. Research by Carol Dweck and others on growth mindset shows that people who assume their abilities and intelligence can be developed, as opposed to believing they are fixed traits, tend to outperform those with a fixed mindset. Students with a growth mindset embrace challenges, persist in the face of setbacks, and ultimately achieve more, precisely because they believe they can improve. This demonstrates how an assumption, e.g., I can learn and grow, changes one's approach to life and leads to concrete differences in results. Similarly, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, helps individuals identify and change core beliefs and negative thought patterns on the premise that changing one's internal assumptions will change feelings and behaviors, leading to improved mental health outcomes. For instance, someone who chronically assumes I am not lovable may sabotage relationships or interpret others' actions in a pessimistic way. CBT would help them challenge and shift that assumption, which often opens the door to healthier relationships and self-esteem. These therapeutic successes highlight the same principle as the law of assumption. Change your belief, and you change your experience. Even outside of therapy, our daily life is replete with examples of the placebo effect of belief. If you've ever felt more confident simply by believing you look good in a new outfit and then notice people responding to you more positively, you've tasted the psychological power of assumption. Our minds constantly filter and interpret reality through our beliefs. Through a process called confirmation bias, we notice and recall information that confirms what we already assume to be true. Thus, assuming good fortune tends to make us more aware of opportunities and quick to capitalize on them, whereas assuming doom and gloom makes us filter in only obstacles and reasons to give up. In sum, psychology confirms that our inner stance profoundly shapes our outer experience. The law of assumption is essentially a conscious use of this truth. By choosing empowering beliefs and steadfastly embodying them, we set in motion the mental and behavioral changes that eventually make them a reality. As one writer succinctly put it, it bridges the gap between mental perception and physical reality, demonstrating how beliefs can shape actions and outcomes. Scientific perspectives, mind, body, and reality. Beyond psychology, Scientific research offers intriguing evidence, both supporting and challenging the law of assumption. On one hand, the mind-body connection is a well-established fact. Our beliefs and expectations can produce measurable physiological effects. The most classic example is the placebo effect. Patients given a mere sugar pill, but who truly believe, they are receiving real medicine, often experience genuine improvements in health, sometimes miraculously so. Doctors have documented cases where placebo treatments led to tumors shrinking, blood pressure dropping, pain relief, and other healing responses. In one dramatic case from the 1950s, a man with advanced cancer was given a fake miracle drug. His unwavering belief in the treatment caused his tumors to virtually melt away, at least until he lost faith after reading negative press, illustrating how expectations and belief can greatly affect the course of an illness. Modern studies confirm that placebo remedies can trigger the brain's healing pathways, releasing endorphins and even modulating immune responses. As Scientific American noted, a patient's expectations and beliefs can greatly affect the course of an illness to the point that real physiological changes occur. This is essentially the law of assumption operating within the body. The assumption of healing sets in motion biological mechanisms that produce healing. The nocebo effect is the dark flip side. Negative assumptions can induce illness or side effects even when nothing concrete should cause them. For example, a patient experiences real pain or nausea because they believe a harmless substance is harmful. These phenomena underscore a scientifically recognized principle. Beliefs are causative agents in the mind-body system. Expanding beyond the individual, some scientists and philosophers have explored whether consciousness can influence physical reality at large. Quantum physics, the famously counterintuitive science of subatomic particles, has often been cited in this context. In quantum experiments, the act of observation appears to affect outcomes, a phenomenon sometimes called the observer effect. For instance, light can behave as a wave or a particle depending on how a scientist measures it. It's been said that at the quantum level, the mere act of observation changes the fundamental state of light. This puzzling result has led some thinkers to suggest that mind and matter are deeply entwined, lending a bit of scientific credence to the idea that consciousness, observation, collapses possibilities into reality. The physicist John Wheeler even spoke of a participatory universe, where observers are necessary participants in the manifestation of the cosmos. While mainstream science interprets the observer effect in strictly technical terms, our measurement apparatus, not our mind's intent per se, causes the effect. Spiritual metaphysicists seize upon it as evidence that we do not live in an objective world. Reality, it seems, is subjective in nature, and consciousness plays a role in that subjectivity. In simpler words, some scientists and many spiritual writers agree, you shape your reality. If the universe at its core behaves like a field of probabilities influenced by observation, one can draw a parallel to the law of assumption. Our focused consciousness might help shape which potential outcomes solidify into the reality we experience. It must be noted, however, that the scientific community remains largely skeptical of claims that thoughts alone can directly manipulate external circumstances beyond our own behavior and physiology. From a conventional scientific perspective, there is no confirmed mechanism by which simply assuming I have $1 million will cause money to rain from the sky. Researchers would point out that confirmation bias, behavioral changes, and social feedback loops explain much of the success of positive thinking. It works because it changes you, and you then change your environment through actions, even subtle ones. Nevertheless, science does recognize extraordinary cases of mind influencing matter in the body, placebo studies, mind-driven neuroplasticity, biofeedback control of heart rate, etc. And it's gradually unraveling mysteries about consciousness. Some frontier research, such as experiments in parapsychology or studies like the Global Consciousness Project, has explored whether focused intention can affect random number generators or other systems. The results have been intriguing but not definitive, often yielding small effects that are debated among scientists. What we can say is that science supports the power of mindset in practical ways and hints at a universe more interwoven with mind than we previously assumed. The law of assumption finds supportive evidence in psychology and psychosomatic medicine, and the more metaphysical claims remain an area of philosophical interpretation. For a spiritually inclined person, the fact that quantum physics allows for observer-dependent outcomes and that biology responds to belief is enough to affirm that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophy. The safest scientific stance might be: adopt empowering assumptions because they improve your psychology and behavior, and stay open to the possibility that reality itself may be more responsive to consciousness than we yet understand. Practical applications. Living by the law of assumption. Applying the law of assumption in daily life involves a mix of mental discipline, imaginative practice, and heartfelt trust. Here is a step-by-step guide to consciously manifesting your goals using this law. Clarify your desire. First, get clear on what you truly want. Whether it's a loving relationship, a fulfilling career, improved health, or spiritual growth, define it in specific terms. You can journal about your ideal scenario to crystallize it. The law works best when you have a focused intention rather than a vague wish. As Neville Goddard suggested, you must know the end you aim to live in. Assume the desired state internally. Now, imagine yourself already in possession of your desire. This is the heart of the practice. Create a vivid mental scene that implies the wish fulfilled. For example, if your goal is a new home, imagine walking through the rooms with a sense of gratitude and pride. Engage all your senses. See the details, hear the sounds, feel the textures. Most importantly, feel the feelings you would feel if it were accomplished. Joy, peace, confidence, gratitude. Neville emphasized that feeling is the secret ingredient that makes an impression on the subconscious. Live in that inner experience as if it is happening right now. This might be during a dedicated visualization meditation each day, and also in little daydream moments throughout the day. Essentially, you are rehearsing reality and consciousness. By immersing yourself in the emotional state of having already achieved it, you condition your mind, and arguably the quantum fabric of reality, to accept this new state as fact. Maintain unwavering faith and positivity. Adopting a new assumption can be challenging. Doubts will creep in, and old habits of thought may contradict your vision, e.g., who am I kidding? This isn't real. Gently but firmly, dismiss limiting beliefs and replace them with your chosen assumption. This step is about mental persistence. The Nubian Impulse Guide to Law of Assumption notes that unshakable belief and confidence in the outcome are crucial. You must foster unwavering faith that your assumption will manifest. When negative thoughts or circumstances appear, treat them as transient and inferior to your deeper knowing. Some people find affirmations helpful. I am successful and respected in my field, for instance, repeated with conviction. Others use prayer or mantra to reinforce trust that the universe is aligning things in your favor. The key is to not dwell on the absence of your desire or on how it will happen. Instead, continue to anchor your mind in the fulfilled feeling. This corresponds to the biblical advice, walk by faith, not by sight. By keeping your assumption more real to you than any temporary external conditions, you effectively sustain the vibrational match to your goal. Align actions with the assumption. Although the law of assumption emphasizes mental and spiritual alignment, Your actions should naturally flow from your assumed state. You don't need to force action from a place of fear or desperation. Rather, let your intuitive impulses guide you. If you have assumed yourself to be, say, a successful entrepreneur, you will start thinking like one, and thus you'll likely notice opportunities, make inspired decisions, maybe take a business course or reach out to a mentor because it feels natural for the you. Who is successful? This is sometimes called inspired action. It's not idle waiting. It's doing what resonates with your new reality. Acting as if isn't about fake posturing. It's about genuinely being that person in every small choice. Over time, this consistent alignment between your inner state and outer steps creates a powerful momentum. The world begins to meet you halfway. People around you may sense the confidence or change in you and respond favorably. In short, behave and make decisions today as the fulfilled version of you would. This not only hastens the manifestation, it also is an authentic way of embodying your transformation. Be patient and persistent. Just as a seed germinates unseen before sprouting, your assumed reality may take time to crystallize. Do not be discouraged by a lack of instant results. Persist in your assumption with faith. Neville Goddard advised persisting until your assumption feels so natural that it's as if the external fact is inevitable. When you persist in an assumption until it becomes your dominant thought and feeling, that assumption has no choice but to harden into fact, he taught. Remind yourself that creation is finished in the invisible realm. Your job is simply to keep the faith until it materializes. If you stay consistent, instead of constantly digging up the seed with doubt, your desired outcome will unfold in its own perfect timing. Many practitioners of the law of assumption have dramatic success stories, but often after a period of testing and inner growth. Trust the process and use any interim challenges as opportunities to deepen your conviction. Cultivate gratitude and let go. An often overlooked but important practice is gratitude. Feel thankful for the reality you have assumed, as though it's already given. Gratitude places you in the receptive, fulfilled state and can dissolve resistance. Along with gratitude, practice letting go of the desperate attachment to the outcome. This may sound paradoxical, but it means releasing any worry or obsession. You've planted the seed. You water it with attention and emotion daily. You don't also need to pry it open. Let the universe figure out the how. By maintaining a light, trusting attitude. This or something even better is coming. I know it. You actually allow manifestations to happen more freely. By following these steps, you effectively reprogram your mindset to match your aspirations. You might start noticing subtle shifts, new opportunities, coincidences, helpful people, or simply a change in your own mood and behavior that leads to success. This process is both practical and deeply spiritual. It requires self-reflection and honesty to identify what you truly want and what thoughts you must change, and it fosters qualities like patience, imagination, and self-belief. Real-life application. For example, let's say you're applying for jobs and haven't had luck. Instead of cycling through frustration, which reinforces an assumption of rejection, you decide to apply the law of assumption. You create a vivid scene of celebrating a new job offer, feeling proud and excited. Each morning, you sit quietly and replay the scene, feeling, yes, I've got it. In day-to-day life, you start carrying yourself as a confident, valuable candidate. Maybe you even invest in a new interview outfit or take an online course to bolster that identity. You speak about your job search with optimism, as though success is certain. Within a short time, this mental shift improves your interviews. You come across as enthusiastic and self-assured. Perhaps a friend randomly mentions a company that's hiring, a lead you wouldn't have noticed if you had remained dejected. Within a few weeks, you land a position that matches the vision you upheld. From the outside, it might look like coincidence or simply improved effort, but from your perspective, you consciously created the outcome by first assuming it was yours internally. Embracing the journey. The law of assumption teaches us that we are far more powerful in shaping our lives than we might have been taught. It is both a spiritual truth, echoing wisdom from Christianity's faith to Buddhism's mindfulness, and a practical tool, aligning with psychological techniques for self-improvement. By assuming the best about ourselves and our futures, we ignite positive changes in our mindset, which in turn influence our reality in profound ways. This principle invites us to live inspired lives, where instead of passively reacting to circumstances, we proactively imagine and feel into the lives we wish to lead. It's important to approach it with both hope and humility. Not every wish manifests exactly when or how we expect, and sometimes a higher wisdom is at work. Yet, even in those cases, cultivating empowering assumptions like trust, self-love, and abundance will lead us to growth and blessings, if not the letter of our desire, then the spirit of it. In embracing the law of assumption, we essentially choose to live by faith in our highest vision. This can be a deeply spiritual practice. One learns to see beyond appearances, to honor the creative divinity within, and to cooperate with the universe's unfolding. It's also a beautifully personal journey of transformation. By practicing it, you may find not only external improvements, but an inner shift. You become more aware of your thoughts, more in tune with your emotions, and more resilient in the face of challenges. Every assumption you revise from negative to positive is like reclaiming a piece of your power. Over time, you'll have evidence in your own life of the truth behind the axiom. Change your assumption, and you change your world. Remember, this law isn't about ignoring reality or escaping into fantasy. It's about anchoring a greater reality within yourself so that it can rise to the surface of your life. As countless spiritual teachers have noted, everything happens twice, first in the mind, then in the world. By the law of assumption, you make the inner occurrence so real and so beautiful that the outer world has no choice but to follow suit. Whether you are a beginner marveling at the idea that thoughts create things, an intermediate seeker practicing visualization daily, or an expert metaphysician exploring the depths of consciousness, the journey with the law of assumption can be profound. It teaches responsibility. Since our thoughts have power, it teaches creativity. Life is our canvas. And it teaches hope. No situation is immutable. Change begins within. In an inspiring way, it reminds us that we are the authors of our stories, and at any moment, we can start assuming a new chapter into being.